Thank you, Senator Whitehouse and Attorney General Ellison. About the weather in Washington today, you know, we like to say it's not the heat, it's the stupidity. We have now for 5 minutes Congresswoman Deborah Ross from North Carolina. I'm sorry, Scanlon is next. Come next.
Thank you.
Scanlon
Thank you.
from PA.
Thank you to Ranking Members Durbin and Raskin for convening this bicameral spotlight hearing. And thank you to all of our attorneys general for being here to discuss the really critical work you're doing as advocates for the rights and freedoms of your constituents in states all across the country. Since the day he took office, President Trump has been trampling on the rule of law that forms the very foundation of our democracy over and over again with one outrageous attack after the next. His administration is testing the guardrails of our system of government, the separation of powers, the Bill of Rights, due process, and of course, federalism. So the fundamental premise that we are a nation of laws, not men, and that therefore no one is above the law, it's clear that this White House desperately hopes that the accountability system of checks and balances upon power in our Constitution will not hold. And his White House has taken a page right out of the authoritarian playbook by targeting the people who defend the law, fight corruption, speak truth to power, and protect the people's rights. But as millions of peaceful protesters showed last weekend and reaffirmed across the country, America has no kings. So we are really grateful to the service of our attorneys general who are working on behalf of all Americans to hold this administration accountable and challenge its power grabs in court, because you're winning and you're proving every day that our country and Constitution are stronger than one man's political whims or petty vengeances. So you're all doing really important work in so many different areas, but I wanted to focus for a minute on this administration's illegal and unconstitutional attempts to cut billions of dollars of congressionally authorized funding for critical healthcare research. I represent Philadelphia and surrounding counties, so these cuts have had an immediate negative impact in our region. We have 1 in 6 doctors in this country spend some time training in Philadelphia, and we've had some of the most transformative biomedical research happening in our area. But in recent weeks, my constituents are reporting a whole range of negative consequences from the cuts to existing research programs. So what we've heard just in the last few months from these cuts is that life-saving research, such as ovarian cancer trials, are being disrupted. And trial participants are being told they can no longer receive the treatment that for many was their last best hope. Accomplished research personnel are being laid off, threatening their livelihoods, kneecapping our medical sector's ability to innovate, and increasingly risking that they're going to be forced to relocate to other countries. Internships are being canceled, so college students and our next generation of researchers are not able to get the training that will help them become the next wave of innovators. And finally, to preserve multi-year research projects in the face of this sudden, unannounced funding shortfall, universities are canceling capital projects. So that means sheet metal workers and other construction workers are being laid off because those programs can't go forward. And of course, we've got the overall loss of medical knowledge. So Attorney General Campbell, you've really been leading a lot of the fight against these cuts. Can you talk more about the research you see being endangered and why the cases you're leading are so critical to the health of your constituents in Massachusetts, mine in Pennsylvania, and folks across the country?
Thank you, Representative, for the question, but also the broad and expansive frame here. I'm really proud, as I said earlier, of the response from my colleagues in coming together to protect access to all NIH funding, because it's not just about the life-saving piece of a clinical trial, for example, that is under threat. It is about jobs, internships. We had a researcher at Harvard working on antibiotics. It's about our global standing in the world when it comes to how we're advancing that medical research, and that job is now under threat. We have Mass General Brigham in Massachusetts, which receives patients from all around the world, the largest recipient of NIH funding, that has had to cut various programs because of the uncertainty. So I'm always careful, I think, in defining how we're winning, because I never want to discount the real harm that people are suffering and experiencing, even as we sit here. You can't just turn back on a clinical trial, and if you've missed one part of it, that can mean all of your clinical trials going forward are over, and that means life or death for an individual, for a family, for a child. So I am, at the same time, hopeful and optimistic about the response from the courts here, both Democratic and Republican appointed judges who recognize the unlawful violations and actions of this administration to undermine not just the NIH funding in our respective states, but the public health infrastructure of our country. And this has to do with our global security as well. It has to do with our economy as a whole. And then if you think about it, affordability is still the #1 issue. It also, of course, creates uncertainty with respect to what people have to pay to get the care they so desperately need, along with the jobs they so desperately need. So we're very grateful for the preliminary injunction that we won back in April. We're also grateful of the recent decision we won in NIH 2, pushing the envelope a little bit in terms of what the law could do to protect folks and organizations that are seeking this funding, including those folks who were granted the funding, but then the administration unlawfully cut it off. So we're going to keep fighting the fight with respect to this funding, regardless of what political affiliation is by someone's name or what state they are in. And we will continue to do it with a sense of urgency.
Really appreciate your work on that. Thank you.
Thank you.